Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Hazel Adams. Thank you for joining me today. So first of all, I know it's been a few days since I last posted. Thank you for your wonderful comments and you clicked like and all of those things on my last video. I really appreciate that. And yeah, I've been radio silent for a few days. I go through periods like that, very honestly. As much as I wish I had the makeup to get on every day and record something every day, I'm not built that way, at least not at this point. I am not always in a place where it feels genuine to sort of flow and spool information and ideas and energies out to others in an overt way, you know, in this public way. I am always taking in insight and energies, understanding things, and essentially sort of being a broadcast beacon or something like that for the planet and for you all, whether I'm in contact with you in the physical or not. I do want you to know that I think of you all the time, and I'm always in a place of sharing and being an open broadcaster of the energies and insights and understandings that come my way. Again, it's just not authentic to me to record a YouTube every day or even necessarily every other day. So there's a lot going on in the world, in the US, in the astrology, in the energies. There's so much going on, and yet I feel like what today is about is sort of simple. I will touch on some of the great activity going on energetically now and sort of the current state of the solar flash, you know, the ascension in the solar flash that we've all been talking about so much. We'll definitely talk about that a little bit. And most important, it feels today like we need to talk about the field of the heart and the morphic field of being in love, cooperation, unity, where all things are possible. You're directly not just connected, but in direct communion with your divine God consciousness within, versus the morphic field of fear and lack and separation that has been the predominant consensus collective consciousness that we've all vibrated in for eons now. So first of all, the energies going on, again, there's so much. And I want to start with the biggest and the simplest first. I had posed to you all the idea that the solar flash wouldn't be just one event, it would be sort of a swarm of events. Well, I was more correct than I even realized at the time when I said that, because now all the higher dimensional entities, and when I say all, I mean the ones that I can consistently count on to really be speaking heart's truth and not be fear-mongering and getting bought into particular stories. The ones that I follow and generally trust as resources are all saying the same thing, that we are being upgraded in waves, and the waves keep coming and coming, and they will continue to come into 2026, into the summer solstice 2026. And within that, a couple of them are saying, yes, you're being upgraded. These are precursor waves. These are uplifting waves, getting you ready, lifting you higher and higher so that you are ready for the big event, which Tia, the Arcturian entity that I particularly like, she's channeled on the GFL station, she said, it's not a cataclysm that's going to be wreaked upon you. It's more like a graduation celebration, that you've gone through all of this and you've gone through all of these upgrades. And now, you know, this is sort of the big celebration of that. And that's the one that feels accurate to me. So I'm going with it. Now, she has said that we have risen in our vibration so quickly that that culminating event, that graduation celebration event, could happen tomorrow or next week or in a few weeks or months. There's no way to directly time that because, again, it's not something that's planned out there and done to us. It's when our consciousness reaches this point of where we're different, we're changed as a collective, and the solar flash sort of is a reflection of that and support of that. So Tia is saying it could happen again tomorrow or next week or in a few weeks or in a few months. Another entity that I pretty much like a lot of what she says is Mira, M-I-R-A, again, channeled on the GFL station. Mira has recently said that there will be a sort of a precursor event in 2025, but that the event will be in 2026. But again, she says these aren't definite because no one can definitely predict that, because it depends on what your consciousness, the human collective, is going to do and where you are as to when and how that happens. The 10 Han entity, who I've recently been exposed to on GFL station, I really like pretty much everything he has to say. I'm really kind of impressed with 10 Han. And he doesn't even talk about it in terms of one culminating event. He talks about it in terms of waves and waves building up of upgrade and upgrade. So I think what's being illustrated here is, once again, there isn't just one version of reality that we have to experience. There are different versions of the timeline. We all get to where we're going and where we need to go, but there's different ways for the collective to experience getting there, and then different ways for us as individuals to get there. Now, Tia, in a very recent post, either just the last one or the one before, said that we are at a time of culmination. She said we're at a nexus of timelines where all the possible timelines are coming up to a boil, which is why everything looks so, whoa, what is going on, or, around the world. It's like there's a surprise around every corner, every hour that, something new could be on the news that you didn't see coming. And I like what she said. It's based upon something they're all saying, which is, we have risen so high in our vibration, and we are so now committed on that road to the fifth dimensional way of living, heaven on earth, that anything that isn't that just can't even survive. It's becoming, these are my words, it's becoming like too rarefied an atmosphere for that kind of fear and negativity and domination and control and adversarialness. It cannot survive anymore in the energetic environment that we're holding now. And it tries. And I like the way Tia put it. She said, things that look like they could be terrible, major conflicts and problems arise, just kind of fizzle out. They just disappear seemingly overnight for no reason that anybody really knows particularly. But just these things try to rise up, but then they can't take hold. They can't gain traction and really turn into something. And other entities have said very similar things, that our vibration has gotten so high that that kind of negativity and that old paradigm just, it'll try, it's still trying, but these are sort of last ditch efforts. They can't survive in the atmosphere, the energetic environment that we're holding now as a collective. And I think that's wonderful news. And in fact, Tia gave a couple of very specific instances. I don't know if you all were aware that about 2 weeks ago now, 10 days, 2 weeks ago, there was a double blackout in the Schumann resonance, that heartbeat, that pulse of the earth. There was a double Schumann blackout. And she said during those two blackouts, and they were back to back, she said that two potentially really negative, disastrous turns on a timeline came up as possibilities, and they were neutralized. There were two of them. One of them was the Iran-Israel conflict. Evidently, one of the very probable timelines there was that got elevated and turned into something really ugly really fast. And one of the Schumann resonance blackouts neutralized and negated that. She said there's another one that tried to come up, and she didn't even want to give it energy by saying who, what, where, but there was another really ugly situation that was ready to pop up at that time, and that was the other part of that double Schumann blackout. So again, that's wonderful. That's our consciousness saying, no, that doesn't belong here anymore. That's not where we are anymore. You're not welcome here anymore. We're not buying it anymore. That's our consciousness collectively not wanting that kind of stuff anymore. And as far as energies coming in, waves of energy coming in, Ten Han mentioned at the very end of June that there was an anomaly in that Schumann resonance where it went vertical. Well, there was an odd anomaly, a spike where normally the Schumann resonance likes to hang out around 7.8 hertz, I guess, and it was up to 50. So, it was a vertical spike. That's all I know. I'm not an expert on this. but that we got a huge upgrade there to our DNA and our light bodies. Another entity that every now and then I click on, and when I do, it's always really good, is the Avalon Andromedan entity, channeled through GFL station. And he said that we were receiving a pearlescent wave of plasma light codes that were specifically encoded with sound and geometry that is the energy, the field for our collective of soul's truth. So that you're literally tuning into this energetic state of truth, soul's truth, for individuals, for the collective, for society. So bringing to the surface and clearing anything that is not of truth, soul's truth, love, light, anything that is turning away from that light and truth, anything that is turning away from infinite freedom and possibility and creativity, anything that's turning away from integrity and highest, best intentions for everyone and everything. And just a word about astrology. There's so much of it going on that I'm not even going to attempt to cover it here. I couldn't do it without a book of notes anyway. But the planet Uranus is leaving the sign of Taurus, and where it's been for 77 years, and moving into Gemini. And the difference, the energetic difference there is Uranus represents literally the bolt out of the blue, the lightning strike. It can just be, it tends to be revolutionary and quick and just change everything on a dime, bolt out of the blue. Taurus is not conducive to that. Taurus is more staid and solid and stable and very earthy, very earth oriented. But Uranus is now moving into Gemini, which is very quick and has to do with processing information. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. And, if you think back to your school days, the god Mercury was basically exchanging information from the underworld to the heavens. It's that exchange of information. So whenever the mercurial energies, Gemini, are involved, there's lots to do with information. We're going to see lots of quick change in our technologies, our information technologies. Uranus is evidently also the god of the skies. So all kinds of things could be going on as far as space and flight. And what I pick up through my own intuitive channels is that because there is such an involvement of information and flow and exchange of information very, very quick and bolts out of the blue, not only will there be insights and technologies and all kinds of just very, very quick, amazing changes to our world and what we have available to us in our world, but also bolt out of the blue as far as information coming to light that we hadn't seen before, that we hadn't known about. There could be lots of revelations about corruptions and the corrupted structures that actually were holding up the institutions that we've been accepting as part of our world. So it's going to be a really crazy time of just fast change and upheaval from now till mid-2026. And there's lots of astrology to talk about on the way. And again, I'm not an astrologer. I'll let you turn to the Astrology Report or Pam Gregory or Brian Coulter. There are some very good astrologers online that you can get an idea of what the planetary reflection is doing, because it's all a reflection of where our consciousness is, not vice versa. Also, that's Stefan Burns, who is the geophysicist and tracks all of the space weather and the solar flares and whatnot, but he's very knowledgeable about astrology. And at the end of his presentations, he always goes into the astrological sacred geometry that's going on. So even if you don't want to listen through to all the sort of little details in the charts, because he likes to show all those, you can fast forward and get to that part at the end of his presentations as well. On that note, Ten Han talking about the big influx of energy we had that made a vertical spike in the Schumann resonance, and Avalon talking about the wave of cosmic energy coming in, and that was a lot of gamma rays. Not only has our solar sun been active, this past week there were not one but two explosions of supernovas in deep space, blasting us with gamma rays and waves of photonic information, light codes. So I'm going to say look for things to be very surprising and topsy-turvy from now through till midsummer of 2026. And I don't mean by that horrible and chaotic and that everybody has to suffer and, apocalypse. I don't mean that. But just this is our new normal right now. We are literally shifting, and here's where we talk about the morphic fields. The consensus field of consciousness for eons has been taking for granted as the paradigm separation from source, struggle for limited resources, and therefore competition and adversarialness and fear that there wouldn't be enough, and therefore having to get into conflict with others. That's been the whole paradigm that humanity has been based in our history as we know it. A paradigm, a morphic field of consciousness in which it is normal and expected that you have to work hard and scratch and claw for what you have, that you have to knock out competition to get what you need, that there's probably not going to be enough, and that you better take care of you first because there's not going to be enough for everybody and you got to take care of you first. And therefore a constant expectation, not of ease and flow and abundance, but of struggle and hardship and conflict. That's been the morphic field that we as a collective have lived in, again, since time immemorial. And we're literally shedding that. And I do want to say here, right at this point, we are very literally now switching out of that heavier carbon-based physical presentation that was part of that paradigm, that morphic field, into a golden crystalline silicon-based physical reality. Our bodies are going to be filled with much more light. We're literally making the transition one to the other right now. Our DNA is being reawakened and upgraded. And you can think of it as activating strands that had been deactivated. But our DNA holds all the possibilities it could ever need to be and evolve into anything we need to evolve into. And so what we're doing is activating and re-triggering our DNA to wake up parts that we hadn't been vibrating in for the last gosh knows how many eons. So we're moving into the morphic field of abundance, harmony, best outcomes, and best outcomes for all being the intention, being the field in which you live, where the expectation is joy and creativity and ease and flow. And that if we have something to work out, we start from the energetic vibrational place of perfect harmony, everybody having what they need out of this situation. And then let our source consciousness inspire us and nudge us and give us ideas so that we come forth with the ideas and the solutions. In other words, rather than sitting around a table in conflict, well, this person or this group needs this person, this group needs this, and how do we hammer out a resolution and no one's happy? No, instead of that, we're all one family. We start from everybody gets their heart's desire. Everybody gets what they need and want. We start with that as the energetic truth, as the morphic field that we live from, and then accept in the impulses and the inspirations and the details of how that looks on the ground in the physical. It's coming from the energetic intention first and letting the details be filled in versus being in the energetic field of assumed conflict and competition and adversarialness. So as we're seeing all kinds of things going on, and it's not always easy to see. For those of us in the U.S., you all are aware that Congress and Senate just approved this big, beautiful bill that is really going to take away funding for food stamps for the food insecure in the country, is going to impact as many as 17 million people as far as them being able to have health care because of the Medicaid cuts. So knowing that there are going to be a lot of people experiencing real hardship and very quickly here, right away, that can be troubling and disturbing, because it sort of looks like we're going back to 1700s England, you know, what Charles Dickens wrote about when he wrote Scrooge. It's like, well, if they're going to die, let them die and decrease the surplus population. I mean, it looks like we're trying to get thrown back into that kind of society, which didn't work very well. But rather than get sucked into that, I want to give you the idea of whatever is going on that doesn't feel of light and love and the truth of soul's truth. invite it into the field of the heart. I learned that from one of my matrix energetics teachers, Melissa Joy. She said it in seminars, invite it into the field of the heart. And that is so effective, because what is the field of the heart? It is that upper octave. It is that fifth dimensional higher vibration octave where you're not down in the knife fight struggling for survival. You are in the place of unity consciousness. Everything is available. There's infinite abundance. There's infinite unconditional love. There is ease. There is flow. There is joy. There is creativity. There's a state of perfect harmonizing that everybody gets what they need out of a situation. So that's the higher vibrational octave. And when we're in the field of the heart, that's where we are. I've said to you before, think of the field of the heart, which is a morphic field. It's a state of consciousness you plug into and vibrate in. Invite everything that's not love and light and cooperation and unity. Invite it into the field of the heart. What that does is it immediately pulls you out of being down in the muck and what I call the knife fight. It immediately changes your perspective from being in it and vulnerable to it and sucked in by it to, oh, I'm not in it, but I can transmute it. I can bring it into the field of the heart and suddenly hold it from a much higher place and in a much higher vibration. And from this place in the field of the heart, I can let love and divine source consciousness transmute this situation and work things out in magical, wonderful, unforeseen ways that I never would have been able to imagine with my little left ego brain there. So just your intention of bringing it into the field of the heart changes it, changes how you hold it, and changes what the possible outcomes are for it. Because you're not fighting with it and trying to fix it anymore. You're bringing it in to be transmuted by divine source energy, which can work out anything. There are no limitations on what divine source energy can do. And you can use that bringing things into the field of the heart. If there's some sort of conflict going on between you and a family member or a friend, perhaps something's troubling you about how things are going, or you're not communicating, or something was said that was hurtful, but you don't know how to resolve the problem, invite it into the field of the heart. And I know as you're sitting here listening to me, you're thinking of this, and you can immediately feel the difference. You immediately feel the situation change and transmute upward into something better. So you use it in your personal life, but you can also use it if there's conflict going on in your town or your neighborhood or your city. Bring the thing into the field of the heart, because it's immediately transformed into something higher and better in the field of the heart. I am using the bring it into the field of the heart, invite it into the field of the heart, to handle what I see going on in the United States with these really, in many cases, draconian and backward moving changes that are being made to American law and policy. I'm inviting it into the field of the heart, and I absolutely feel and trust and know that it's all going to work out for everyone's benefit ultimately. And I don't know what that's going to look like on the ground. I don't know how that's going to play out. But I do know that if we invite it into the field of the heart and hold it in the highest vibration, in the intention for the highest good of all, that what's going on will ultimately serve the purpose of everybody coming into a higher vibration and starting to live a heaven on earth scenario and working, and I know you can feel it as I'm talking, working and living within this harmonized, best for everybody, flow, ease, joy, abundance, unconditional love, creativity, that becomes the baseline paradigm, the morphic field from which we all live. Like that's our new normal. So I'm being reminded to remind you all to make sure to keep good boundaries. It's not that you're walling anybody out. It's just that it is your job right now to keep yourself in the field of the heart, or in the upper octave, or in the fifth dimension, in love and joy, whatever words you want to use, in your Christed consciousness. But if anything you click on starts making you feel frightened and threatened and hemmed in any way, or disempowered in any way, turn it off, because that is false. That's pulling you back into the other paradigm. and you want to stay in the paradigm by choice and by decision, stay in the paradigm of the higher dimension, the upper octave, the fifth dimension, the Christed consciousness, the field of the heart. And if you're in the United States, this is 4th of July weekend. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the time with your family. Nurture yourself. Nurture your light. And just nurture your joy. What is joyful and celebratory and hopeful and positive? Thank you again for joining me today. We'll see you next time.